Patchwork is a two-player card drafting tile placement time track game that is a abstract strategy puzzle family game. It's for ages 8+, takes about 15 to 30 minutes to play. In Patchwork, you are building a quilt versus another player. Here are the grid quilt places here and over here as well. On the right, you see a completed quilt. On the left, you see a brand new quilt. To begin the game, each player is given their quilt board along with 5 buttons. These buttons act as both your monetary unit and victory point during the game. To start the game, quilt squares are placed around the primary time track, and a player pawn is yellow and green. Each player takes one of their pawns, puts it on the first space on the track. The time token is also placed to the left of the 2x1 quilt block and moves clockwise. On a player's turn, they can either move their pawn to be just in front of the opponent's pawn, take the number of buttons that you move to acquire more monetary units so as to buy quilt squares, or they can buy a quilt square. You can buy any one of the 3 quilt blocks in front of the time token going clockwise. So in this instance, a player could buy the first one here for 5 buttons. Let me go ahead and show you that closer. Here you can see a 5 button and also a 3 time units. When a player buys this, let's go ahead and buy that for this player here. Place it anywhere on their track, discard the number of buttons as prescribed. All 5 here, put it out here. And they move 3 time units. When they do that, they move 1, 2, 3. Then play moves over to the other player. The time token also moves to where that previous quilt block was. Then the other player has a chance to go. They would now have the choice of what to do. In the effort of time, let's go ahead and say that they'll pass and take 1, 2, 3, 4 monetary units. So they get 4. The next player now has the chance to go, and they don't have any money, so they would go ahead and pass as well. Going 1, 2. They would get 2 monetary units for passing, but they would also, as they passed over this button timer here, they would get a button for each of the buttons shown on their quilt. They have 1, so they get a bonus 1. Play goes back and forth. As they cross buttons, they earn more monetary units. As they pass, they earn more monetary units, slowly building up their quilt. First player to get a 7x7 gets this bonus 7 button point for the end of the game scoring. And the player, once they spiral through and get to the final location, the player with the highest number of buttons wins the game.
Hello and welcome back to Gamers Remorse. Today we're checking out Patchwork, a Uwe Rosenberg 2-player game published by Mayfair and Lookout Games. I wanted to put Spiel in there for some reason.
Because Germany.
Yeah, that was my spiel. Ba-dum-bum. Anyway, what'd you guys think of gameplay? Well, let me take a first stab at it. So, arguably, this is probably one of my favorite 2-player games in recent years. Yes, you could argue that there might be better 2-player games out there, but this one has the benefit of being a unique theme and appeals to an audience that maybe isn't hardcore gamers, right? Mm-hmm. You're building a quilt. Like, how nice is that? How pleasant is that? Until you steal the square from another player. But
because that's how quilting works.
This is true. That's exactly how it works.
I don't quilt. I wouldn't know.
So what I like about this game is it has a broad appeal, but all of the fun things in a modern Euroboard game that I love, right? There's units of cost, right? These buttons, as well as a time dependency and a time track. So I just had a lot of fun with it. What did you guys think?
I mean, I agree. It was an enjoyable game. One of the issues that I run into is, especially with 2-player games, I am a lot less aggressive than I am in non-2-player games.
Because it's more intimate?
Maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And so that is a different hindrance for a game like this. Mm-hmm. If one player is more cutthroat than the other player, the cutthroat player will almost always win. But that's just a common case in a 2-player game.
What about a naive non-cutthroat player. Because they could step on your toes too.
True.
Right? Accidentally.
Yeah.
Eric.
It happened once, twice, 20-ish.
3 times a charm. Anyway. So, that's your opinion.
Yeah,
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. I think it was just a nice pace, change of pace in some senses. Just to go from kind of the broader 2 to 5, 2 to 6 player games, just to an actual 2-player game where it is just you competing against one other person, and the factor of fitting in all of these shapes, as well as managing your board as well as currency and trying to figure out.
It smells so good.
What is he doing?
Yeah. So components wise, I mean, it's pretty decent. It's really just a bunch of tiles and a bunch of funky Tetris shapes. Something they could have done is replace the little chits with real buttons. I mean, that would be pretty cheap to do, I would think, but I get it, you know. You get so many chipboards. Wow, I almost spilled my drink into my lap. Anyway, this is getting weird, folks. Anything you guys else want to talk about with this game? I mean, it's a fairly simple game.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, and I mean, the artwork is very simple, very straightforward, but you do kind of get that look of a quilt versus an amalgamation of various fabrics.
Yeah.
The shapes, of course, don't match a traditional fillet shape, but that doesn't matter. It's a game. As I was playing it, it reminded me a lot of Blockus, in that you have the different tiles, but you're asymmetric because you have to fight over which tiles you want. So I thought it was just really cool the way that you had I really want this tile, but we have to follow the rondelle, but I probably won't get it because they also want it. So I mean, that was quite fascinating. I liked the whole time thing. So it's like, ooh, I want that, but I don't want to jump that far ahead because then they get a free march with the game board or a tile circle, whatever you want to call it. So I mean, it was a fun mix of mechanics, I felt.
And enough depth, you know.
Yeah.
But yet broad enough and simple enough that anyone could be invited to it.
And kind of like what Eric was saying, like, if you have 2 players, it's a lot, in my opinion, it's a lot more fun to play a 2-player game than the 2-player variant of a 2 to 5 player game.
Yes.
I really like that Mayfair has been doing this 2-player game series, because it does open up a lot more games for that market.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye. Did I do that? You did that. Bye.
I want more.
We've got Roku on the front of the screen. Maybe I'll pan this up so I don't have to slouch.
What's that?
Thingamabobs, I've got 3.
Whoa,
That's
what
not
game
right.
was that?
Hey, well, welcome back to Gamers Remorse. Today, we're old. You, not
Game.
do not confuse me for a conjurer of cheap tricks.
I make that mistake a lot.
Oh, that's fair.